A tourist believed his money and status gave him the right to mock and taunt a royal guard, grabbing his hat and laughing loudly. But Sergeant Hayes' response was so unexpected and powerful that it left everyone around stunned. What happened next not only changed the entire day, but also sparked a wave of respect and admiration. You won't believe how it all unfolded. London morning was its usual chaotic blend. Hurried commuters weaving through the throngs, tourists snapping endless photos, and there standing stoic and unmovable, the rows of the Royal Guard. Amidst them, Sergeant Thomas Hayes stood out, not because he was different, but because he was the epitome of what the Guard represented: discipline, honor, and an unwavering commitment to tradition. His stern gaze and immaculate uniform commanded respect from both locals and visitors alike. Today, like every other day, Sergeant Hayes was stationed at the grand entrance of Westminster Abbey, ensuring order and greeting the steady stream of guests. Little did he know, his morning was about to take an unexpected turn. A group of young, overly exuberant tourists approached, their laughter piercing through the usual hum of the city. "Hey, man! Smile for the camera!" one of them shouted, holding his smartphone at Hayes' eye level. Seriously? Who does that? It's like they think you're part of their personal photo album. Hayes remained motionless, his face a mask of calm and restraint. He was well acquainted with such provocations, but today something felt off. Maybe it was the relentless summer heat or the way the tourists were practically begging for attention. Who knows? Another tourist, clearly the ringleader, chimed in with a smirk. "I'm a tourist. I pay money. Entertain me." Oh, please. As if tossing around cash gives them the right to disrespect centuries-old traditions. Hayes simply raised an eyebrow, continuing to survey the surroundings without a hint of irritation. The tension was palpable, and everyone around seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see how he would react. You could almost hear the silent commentary from the crowd. "Come on, man, lighten up!" Or, "Does he ever have a bad day?" But Hayes stayed steadfast, embodying the very essence of British resilience. His silence spoke volumes, a stark contrast to the tourists' blatant disregard for decorum. One of the younger tourists, emboldened by his peers, took a step closer, attempting to touch Hayes' iconic bearskin hat. "Look, I can get a closer shot," he exclaimed, laughter bubbling from the group. "Really? Touching a guard's hat? That's crossing a line." Hayes gently but firmly took the hat back, his movements precise and controlled. The onlookers began to murmur, some snickering at the tourists' antics, others visibly irritated by the disruption of the peaceful morning. "Wow, some people have no respect," a passerby muttered, shaking their head. And you know what? They're right. It's infuriating how a simple act of disrespect can escalate so quickly, turning a serene setting into a battleground of manners versus modern entitlement. As Hayes retrieved his hat, the group didn't back down. Instead, their behavior grew more audacious, each attempt to provoke him more ridiculous than the last. It was clear they thrived on pushing boundaries, mistaking their tourist status for a free pass to act out. But Hayes? He was unshakable, the living symbol of tradition standing tall against the tide of contemporary disrespect. The morning sun cast long shadows as the interaction continued, each moment heightening the underlying conflict between old-world honor and new-age arrogance. Hayes' unwavering demeanor was both admirable and frustrating, a silent testament to the values he upheld amidst the chaos of modern tourism. And there it was, the calm before the storm. The stage was set, the characters in place, and everyone, including Hayes, knew that something significant was brewing. The crowd watched, some in anticipation, others in disdain, as the tension thickened, waiting for that one moment when everything would change. Despite Sergeant Hayes' unwavering composure, the group of tourists showed no signs of backing down. If anything, their audacity was reaching new heights, fueled by the belief that their status as visitors granted them carte blanche to disrupt centuries-old traditions. It was almost laughable, if it weren't so infuriating. One particularly brazen tourist, a young man named Jake, decided to up the ante. With a mischievous grin plastered on his face, he reached out and attempted to tug at Hayes' towering bearskin hat. The absurdity of the act wasn't lost on the surrounding crowd. "Look, we've got ourselves a mini barber now," Jake laughed, holding the hat aloft as if it were a novelty toy. "Seriously? Who does that?" It's as if he thinks the guard's hat is his personal plaything. Hayes calmly but firmly took the hat back, his hands steady despite the rising tension. Yet if you looked closely, you could see a slight tremor, a testament to the mounting frustration boiling beneath his stoic exterior. The crowd around them began to split into factions. Some burst into laughter at the tourists' antics, finding Jake's behavior entertaining. Others frowned, their irritation evident as they witnessed the blatant disrespect towards a symbol of British heritage. It was a clear divide, respect versus entitlement. "Dude, lighten up! It's just a photo op!" Another tourist chimed in, trying to justify Jake's actions. "Oh, give me a break. Just a photo op? More like a blatant assault on tradition." Hayes' expression remained impassive, but his eyes hardened slightly, signaling that patience was wearing thin. The air was thick with anticipation. Everyone knew this could only escalate from here. Suddenly, Jake took things too far. He swaggered over to Hayes' horse, moving so close that the animal began to shift uneasily. "Ha ha! Check it out! The horse is chasing me!" he shouted, flailing his arms dramatically. "Really, Jake? Interfering with the horse's space? It's like he believes the horse is his personal amusement device." The horse started pawing the ground nervously, clearly disturbed by Jake's intrusion. The tourists around him egged him on, their laughter growing louder, while others in the crowd started to show signs of displeasure. "Hey buddy, give it a rest," Hayes called out, his voice calm but carrying an edge of authority. "Please, stop. Please, stop. More like, please control yourselves." Hayes tried to maintain his professionalism, but internally, his frustration was mounting. He watched as Jake nonchalantly tossed a handful of coins towards him, a pathetic attempt to bribe his way out of the situation. "Here, take these for a better reaction," Jake smirked, reveling in the chaos he was causing. "Oh, spare me the bribery. It's pathetic how he thinks money can buy him respect or entertainment." Hayes took a deep breath, steadying himself. The surrounding crowd began to murmur, whispers of disapproval mingling with the lingering laughter. Some bystanders pulled out their phones, capturing the escalating drama, likely to share it on social media later. "Unbelievable," a local onlooker muttered under his breath. "They have no respect for anything." We all know how frustrating it is when people think their money or status gives them the right to disrupt traditions. It's maddening to watch someone like Jake, blinded by entitlement, trample over centuries of honor and discipline. As Jake continued his antics, the horse became increasingly agitated, pawing the ground and neighing softly. Hayes knew he had to act before things spiraled further out of control. The balance between maintaining order and not escalating the conflict was delicate, and Jake was testing those boundaries relentlessly. "Seriously, man, back off," Hayes said, his tone firm yet measured, hoping to de-escalate the situation without losing his cool. But Jake was having none of it. "Come on, guard! Show us something exciting!" he demanded, clearly enjoying the spectacle he was creating. "Oh, give me a break," as if this was some kind of interactive show designed for his amusement. Hayes stood his ground, the weight of tradition pressing down on him. He couldn't let Jake's disrespect go unanswered, yet he had to remain composed to prevent the situation from spiraling out of control. The crowd watched with bated breath, the tension between old-world honor and modern entitlement reaching its peak. Some cheered Jake on, reveling in his rebelliousness, while others shook their heads in disappointment, longing for the days when respect and decorum were the norm. In that moment, it was clear that Sergeant Hayes was not just battling Jake's disrespect, but also the broader issue of fading traditions and the rise of entitlement. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test Hayes' resilience and the community's commitment to preserving their heritage. Just when things seemed like they couldn't get any more ridiculous, a small child wandered into the chaos. Lost and terrified, the little boy started crying uncontrollably, his tiny face scrunched up in panic. "Seriously, what is happening here? It's like a scene from a bad reality show." Without missing a beat, Sergeant Hayes shifted gears from conflict to compassion. He approached the child with the same calm demeanor that had earned him so much respect. Kneeling down, he gently lifted the boy into his arms, his strong presence instantly soothing the frightened child. "All is well, son," Hayes said softly, extending his hand towards the frantic parents who were frantically searching the crowd. It was a stark contrast to the earlier tension. Here was true dignity in action. As Hayes comforted the child, the crowd's mood began to shift. The once divided onlookers started to rally behind him. Applause broke out, and people began to record the scene on their phones. It was as if the universe decided to slap some sense into those obnoxious tourists. "Finally, some decency," one spectator muttered, nodding in approval. Jake, the ringleader, realized his game was over. His smirk faltered as he watched Hayes cradle the child, and the realization of his own foolishness hit him hard. Desperate to salvage his pride, he stammered an apology, but Hayes simply offered a restrained, ironic smile. "Sometimes the strongest weapon is calm and helping those in need," Hayes remarked, returning the child to his grateful parents. "Smooth move, Hayes. Way to turn the tables without breaking a sweat." The crowd erupted into applause, many cheering for Hayes' unwavering professionalism and humanity. Phones were flashing everywhere, capturing the moment that perfectly encapsulated why these traditions matter. Social media buzzed with praise. "True hero." "Respect to Sergeant Hayes. This is why traditions matter." Meanwhile, Jake stood there, dumbfounded and sheepish, as the realization dawned on him that his attempt to provoke had backfired spectacularly. The once supportive tourists now looked on with a mix of embarrassment and disdain, their earlier bravado evaporating in the face of genuine respect for Hayes. "Look at him," someone in the crowd whispered. "A real gentleman, unlike some tourists we know." And just like that, Jake became the butt of everyone's disdain. The video of Hayes helping the child went viral, turning him into an overnight sensation and solidifying his status as a symbol of honor and resilience. As Hayes returned to his post, adjusting his hat with the same meticulous care, the crowd continued to applaud. The contrast was undeniable. Here stood a man embodying centuries-old traditions, while a handful of misguided tourists were left to face the consequences of their entitlement. The morning's events had taken an unexpected turn, transforming what could have been a mere annoyance into a powerful testament of respect and tradition. Hayes had not only maintained his composure, but had also reinforced the importance of dignity and honor in the face of modern disrespect. As the morning sun climbed higher, the atmosphere around Westminster Abbey thickened with tension. The video of Sergeant Hayes comforting the lost child had already begun its viral journey across the internet, but the immediate aftermath was unfolding right before their eyes. The group of tourists, led by Jake, started to grasp the gravity of the situation they had ignited. Jake and his friends stood awkwardly, their earlier bravado evaporating under the critical gazes of the crowd. "This was a bad idea," Jake muttered, scratching the back of his head as he realized the full extent of his miscalculation. The once confident leader now looked sheepish, trying to salvage his pride amidst the swelling disapproval. "Look at them," a bystander whispered to his friend. "They thought they could mess with tradition and get away with it. Look how it turned out." Sure enough, the crowd around them was a mix of frustration and support. Some continued to laugh at the tourists' foolishness, while others shook their heads in disappointment. Phones were still flashing, capturing every moment, ensuring that Jake's humiliation would be shared far and wide. "Seriously, who acts like this? It's beyond disrespectful," one commenter typed, echoing the sentiments of many watching. Just then, the sound of sirens pierced the air as police officers arrived on the scene. Their presence was the final nail in the coffin for Jake and his crew. The officers approached the group with stern expressions, ready to put an end to the disruption. "You're all asked to leave the premises immediately," one of them ordered, his tone leaving no room for argument. Jake glanced around, his eyes meeting those of the onlookers who were now openly criticizing him. "I'm sorry," he mumbled, his voice barely audible over the murmurs of the crowd. He turned to leave, his steps heavy with the weight of embarrassment and regret. As Jake and his friends were escorted away, Sergeant Hayes remained composed, still holding the child securely in his arms. The transformation in the crowd was palpable. What was once a divided audience, now united in admiration for Hayes. Applause erupted around him, echoing through the cobblestone streets as people recognized the true hero of the morning. "Look at him!" someone in the crowd shouted. "A real gentleman, unlike some tourists we know." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Hayes had turned a potential disaster into a moment of unity and respect, showcasing the true essence of British tradition. The video of Hayes helping the child continued to spread like wildfire. Social media platforms were flooded with clips and screenshots, accompanied by a torrent of supportive comments. "True hero," one viewer wrote. "Respect to Sergeant Hayes," another added. "This is why traditions matter," echoed across various posts, reinforcing the importance of preserving cultural heritage against modern entitlement. Meanwhile, Jake lingered at the edge of the crowd, watching as his friends received reproaches from other tourists and locals alike. The realization of his actions hit him hard. He had underestimated the power of tradition and the respect it commanded. "I didn't think it would go this far," he admitted to a friend, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine remorse. Back at his post, Sergeant Hayes carefully handed the child back to his frantic parents. "Sometimes the strongest weapon is calm and helping those in need," he remarked, his voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of restrained emotion. It was a profound statement that resonated deeply with everyone watching. Hayes adjusted his bearskin hat with meticulous precision, his movements deliberate and dignified. The crowd continued to applaud, some wiping away tears of admiration, others simply awed by his unwavering dedication. Hayes looked around, his eyes meeting those of the supporters who had gathered to honor him. The sense of accomplishment and fulfillment was evident, yet he remained humble, embodying the very principles he stood for. The police had now cleared the area, and the remaining tourists shuffled away, chastened and silent. The stark contrast between their earlier entitlement and their current shame was a powerful reminder of the consequences of disrespecting tradition. Hayes's actions had not only preserved the dignity of the Royal Guard, but had also ignited a conversation about the importance of cultural respect in an increasingly globalized world. As the day progressed, the story of Sergeant Thomas Hayes became a symbol of resilience and honor. News outlets picked up the tale, highlighting his heroism and the viral video that had captivated millions. Hayes received messages of gratitude and admiration from all corners of the globe, reinforcing his role as a modern-day guardian of tradition. In the end, the morning's chaos had culminated in a reaffirmation of values that many feared were being lost. Sergeant Hayes had stood firm against the tide of modern entitlement, demonstrating that true strength lies in dignity, respect, and unwavering commitment to one's duty. The applause that surrounded him was not just for a job well done, but for a beacon of honor shining brightly in a world that desperately needed it.